So we'll get started with the podcast. How's it going, John?
Hey, Eric. How you doing tonight?
Good. I keep thinking we need to figure out a different way to start.
It's okay. It's okay. You know, what are you going to do? Hey, so how was your week?
It was a lot of fun. I had a weekend of... So you made pickles last week. I think you talked about it on the podcast.
I did.
And you had leftovers, which you generously gave to me. And so I made pickles this weekend. In between times where my oldest daughter, who had been to Japan, decided she wanted to make authentic ramen. She had got recipes while she was in Japan from a sweet little old lady who had cooked them in Japan. And apparently they were going to this local ramen house where one of the guys in their group who knew Japanese really well was very outgoing and would go back in the kitchen and help them cook.
Oh.
As a customer. But
okay.
He was like apparently one of those kind of guys that was just out there, hey, let me come back and help you. And they gave her the ramen recipe. So it was...
You told me a little bit about that. That would require a little bit of bravery, I feel like, on my part.
Yes, it was. So you had to render down pigs. I can't remember.
Trotters.
Trotters, thank you. Feet. Well, I guess trotters make sense. I just made the connection. Trotter, trot, feet. Okay.
There you go. Yes.
I got it. So it had pig's feet and chicken bones and pork fat from the back, which we had to go get from, there's a local Japanese store here. So we got some Japanese items and had to go to the local butcher shop to get actual pig fat, because apparently they don't sell that, out next to the bacon. There's not a pound of pig fat. Anyways, and we made homemade ramen noodles. And my favorite part was these noodles. And this was just from a different website she had found. And I learned that you can actually bake baking soda to make it even more alkaline, which gives ramen noodles their bite, it makes them different noodles.
Really?
Yes. I was unaware that you could bake baking soda, but...
But they were good?
It was very, very good. So we made two different types of ramen, a miso ramen and I'm going to say it all wrong, tonkatsu. I'm probably saying the wrong syllables in there, but it's a pork, the trotter ramen, which you sat and you boiled stuff down for 18 hours. So in the middle of boiling stuff for 18 hours, I made pickles, some dill pickles. And it was a very long day, started real early and finished around 1 a.m. But we had it the next day for dinner, and with the fresh ramen noodles, it was very good. That was the highlight of my weekend, making homemade authentic ramen.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I had a low light of a weekend in one way. In that we were building a fence last week.
Yes.
And then on Saturday it was time to stretch the wire. And the fence posts had been in, they were in concrete, and we went to stretch the wire, and evidently our fence posts were not far enough in the ground, or we didn't use enough concrete, or a combination of both. And we totally pulled the fence posts, even though we had the H brace there and everything else, we totally pulled them off of vertical. And so
I take it that's not a good thing for fence posts to clean.
No.
I don't know much about fencing, but I'm pretty sure I know that one.
Yeah, you kind of want the fence post to stay vertical. So, yeah, it was a very disappointing few minutes there. And my joke, even with Shirley, and I did tell you this to you earlier, so you don't have to laugh at the second time, but I think it's the definition of a sunk cost. Because yes. You've sunk fence posts, but you know what? There's no better time to just say, well, we were there. Now we're here. What's the best thing for us to do here? Best thing for us to do is pull those posts, dig the holes deeper, put them in again, redo all the work that we had done. So let's just say we took most of Sunday off because we did other projects on Sunday. We were a little frustrated, but
yeah, that would be discouraging.
Yeah, it was, on the bright side, if I could look at, glass half full, there was one H brace that we had messed up and it was not perfectly horizontal, like level. Mm-hmm. It was a sort of thing that we were measuring 54 inches from the ground and we accidentally measured 54 inches on both posts instead of on one post and then using a level to get across to the other one. And so when you stepped back, the H brace was, it wasn't off too much, but it was not horizontal. And it was going to bother me. So now that won't bother me because I won't make that same mistake twice.
There you go.
But anyway, that's okay. That was our disappointment of the weekend. But the not disappointment is I think I mentioned last week or the Prime Day thing that I had actually bought something for a Christmas present. It was actually a PS4, and I decided that
it's no longer a Christmas present.
I decided that it was Christmas in July because why somebody who's received that kind of news, you should just get out you should get it out and play with it. So. That's the boys and I had a lot of fun doing that, so that was good. That was good. So
there you
anyway,
go.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Well, see, now you don't have to get him. You just remind him. Now I don't have to get you anything in December. You already got it.
Yeah, I don't think that's the way things work. But we'll see.
Well, so I'll give you another short item. It's kind of, I don't know, it's almost follow-up. We've talked about the Pi hole in the past, I believe. It's the little...
I feel like we did.
The little tiny box.
Might have been a long, long time ago.
It runs on a Raspberry Pi. You drop it on your home network, and you use it as the DNS. And it will redirect... It's an ad blocker, basically. It'll block all sorts of different types of websites that places use. And one of the things that has been bugging me at the house is we got a new TV for the basement. It's a Sony Bravia TV, which is very nice. And, the kids we can throw all the teenagers when they show up in the house down in the basement and they can watch Netflix or whatever and hang out and play in the basement and not annoy us upstairs. Well, I have noticed with my fancy Eero that it is a very chatty device because it's plugged in permanently. It's Android TV. And so it bugged me to the point where I said, I'm going to go just point that at a Pi hole. Because I don't have one running for the house as a whole. I use the Eero ad blocking, but I don't use anything else. So I have now had this running for about a week, and oh my goodness, is it chatty. In the last 24 hours, the TV, which has been in the basement doing nothing, no one's used it, it has made almost 6,000 URL requests.
Oh my gracious.
And most of it is API to Netflix. There's some connectivity. There's 566 connectivity checks just to make sure it's up. And a lot of it is Netflix. But it's blocking. It's blocked a couple hundred.
So sorry, the Netflix app is is making calls in the background?
Yes, because it's Android TV. And so even while the TV is off, so the TV is turned off. And while the TV is off. It's kind of like when your phone screen turns off.
You want a power strip off, do you?
Yeah, but then I'd have to turn it back on every time. Yeah, anyways. So I am disappointed that my TV seems to think it needs to be excessively chatty. So I'm just going to stare at it I'm going to watch it for a while just to see if anything interesting pops out from it.
Is there anything that looks sketchy?
Well, yeah. There's different domains. So there are a lot of, what do you call it, user behavior tracking websites that it goes to that are not ad blocking things. So I've added them to the block list, manually.
Okay. So you have actually started blocking some of its calls.
Yeah,
okay.
And it depends on the app too, because apparently, I don't know which app it is, but there's a website called Kochava.com, Kochava.com, that manages analytics for televisions. And Samba.tv manages analytics and user behavior. And, it looks like it's a thing to help give good recommendations to users of the television of other shows they might like. So those kinds of things, which
no, thank you.
Are on other apps. So every app apparently, it's just Android. Really, it's a 70-inch phone is what it really is. So, anyways, I will stare at that for a while and see if anything. Yeah.
All right. Well, cool. Keep us posted.
All right.
Did you see the article from Troy Hunt about the Have I Been Pwned API?
Yes, I did. And I saw a lot of people upset with him. It's like, why? Why are you people upset with him?
Maybe I haven't been on the Twitters that much for the last week or two. So, but I thought that I thought that there were a couple of cool things about this that it's worth reading his article.
Yep.
I mean, the net of it is that, if you want access to the API, you pay $3 a month, $3.50 or something like that.
Right. And that's what everybody on the Twitters were complaining about.
Oh my heavens, not $3 a month. Exactly. People spend double that for one coffee. So anyway, but I thought the cool thing on here was his description of, how he had tried to kind of bend over backwards to avoid going to authenticated requests.
Right, because there was abuse. It was API abuse.
Yeah,
was happening.
He'd added throttling a couple years ago, but there were. Let me scroll up here. There were. Hold on. So there were 15,000 requests across 82 unique IP addresses from a particular ISP, which was in Thailand.
Yeah.
And there's no way that there's that much. And then he's like, so the next one is in Indonesia, the next one's in Brazil, then DigitalOcean, then another Indonesian telco, and there's no and then like Iran is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sixth country. He's like, no, Have I Been Pwned isn't actually big in Iran. So, he's basically they were it was traffic coming from compromised devices, and he right. explains how he kind of tracked that down and figured that out, and then how he tried to sort of avoid it by blocking particular ASNs, blocking particular user agent strings, et cetera, et cetera. But the thing is every time you do that, if you try and block people that don't have good user agent strings,
they just change.
Well, a lot of people who are doing legit API access might just be doing it with a curl command from Python or something along those lines, and it's not putting a good user agent string in. So, I don't know. I liked the The overall article, though, I thought it was worth following up because we've talked about Have I Been Pwned a couple times on the podcast.
Yeah, no, it was great. But this is also to note, this is for the Have I Been Pwned data, not the pwned password data. So the pwned password data is still free, and anyone can check that.
I guess the thing that I would do on this is why only 350? That's the thing that I would do. I'm, you know what? $10 a month. Totally reasonable. I mean, he goes through here and he says, well, 350, the 350 fee is in no way an attempt to monetize something I always wanted to provide for free, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, it's 350 is about what it costs me per million calls to make the service. So anyway. Yep. All right, good follow up, and check it out. Some good stuff.
All right, should we hit topics?
All right, yeah. How about topics? What you got for me today?
I have two, and really they're kind of short. And one is on storing passwords in the clear, and another is on should we have backdoors and encryption. So the first one,
no. Okay, go.
There is an app that is popular. I use it. It's called Robinhood. I should say I used to use it a lot more. I don't really actively try to trade. It's a stock trading app. And they made waves a number of years ago where they made all trading free. So there was no fee for making any trades, and allowed people to get, you could buy one share of something, and it was a
cool.
great little app to introduce you to the stock market and trading the stock market. I don't really do that anymore, but I used to use it quite a bit. Well, they sent out an email proactively saying that they found that some of the users' credentials were stored in a plain text format internally. So they fixed their issue, and they couldn't find any evidence that it was accessed by the outside or there was any abuse, but they're, asking people to reset passwords out of abundance of caution. So, good on them. But
it's a money app.
Yes, it's a money app.
Kinda gotta be as as careful as possible.
Yes, absolutely. So
they didn't say how and where it was actually stored.
No, the assumption I think was it was in a log file somewhere, and now it wasn't in their actual. Well, it didn't say exactly. They haven't said exactly, but they do store it with the bcrypt if they are storing it hashed with bcrypt internally, but I can imagine that it was probably a log file. They rolled out a new update, and a developer had been testing something and left in some debug code that dumped the passwords out to a log file kind of thing. That's my guess as to what happened. That's typically what I think has probably happened there in plenty of good company. Facebook, Instagram, Google, plenty of others have had to admit to those kind of oopses before. So
yeah, it's pretty easy if you're storing, if you're tracking the entirety of a request. So with both the headers and the body. Yeah. It's pretty easy to log it.
So just a note on that one that, hey, happens to the best of us. But yeah, if you use Robinhood, you either got an email saying this might have happened, change your password, or if you just want to be extra cautious, if you're using that app, go change your password, fix your password.
All right. So what was the second one?
The second article is we're back to. So the U.S. Attorney General gave a a keynote address somewhere. I don't remember exactly where, but basically upping the argument that software companies that use encryption for messaging should provide some kind of backdoor because it's making it impossible for law enforcement to do their job.
I swear. So I'm looking at this quote. Let's see. I've had enough of dogmatic pronouncements that lawful access simply cannot be done. It can be and it must be. It's like somebody railing against 2 + 2 must equal 6. I don't care how much you say it's 4. It should be 6.
Yeah, we just changed the rule. So, of course, people can put in backdoors and things, but as soon as you put a backdoor in something intentionally, as soon as you weaken something intentionally, it can cause problems elsewhere. I mean, you think of anything.
Well, so there's we don't have to come up with arguments on the fly of our own. Let me throw a link into the notes. I remember this. I mean, this comes up over and over and over again. But there is a article I remember reading on the Electronic Frontier Foundation's website. So it's actually only from 2018. So it hasn't been that long since it has come back.
Updated again.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's pretty crazy. But this is the, there's a bunch of, let's say, well thought out arguments in here,
right,
about why it's not reasonable to think that you can cut a hole in a building and then control who goes in and out when you're
right.
Not, it's not
right.
possible. So,
all right. Anyway. So that one caught my eye again this week is yet another.
We need a clipper chip.
There's a blast from the past.
There you go.
Anyways, so those are my 2 articles. I'll also link to the EFF article as well. So,
yeah.
What topics do you got? And I just want you to say the name of the company because I think it's hilarious.
Okay, well, it's coming. It's coming. So my first one, I don't think we talked about this last week, although I think it basically just barely missed us for us recording. But this was a set of Chrome and a couple of Firefox extensions that basically were uploading browser history to a central service that then wound up sharing it with a bunch of places. So, but the funny one was that the hyperlinks of every page were published by a fee-based service called Nacho Analytics. Oh, what are we, 10? So yeah, so this is yeah. A service that marketed itself, it says, as God mode for the internet, and see anyone's analytics account. Yeah, that's surely on the white side of the gray line. Anyway, so this is garbage behavior. But the interesting security angle, I mean, there's a couple of security angles on this, but the interesting thing about this from just sort of a practitioner angle is, a lot of pages are only protected because they're not linked anywhere. You get a URL that has a token embedded as an attribute in the URL or in the URL string itself, and it's not indexed, and maybe it's not permanent. Maybe it has it'll disappear after a little bit of time, but there's lots of things. There's lots of examples of this where, for example, if you share an iCloud document with somebody, in general, that, the URL is not guessable, but anybody who gets the URL can use it. So if you've got a browser extension that's tracking all the URLs you go to and then posting them separately for other people to go look at, then they can look at things that are, let me see all the Dropbox links that were shared. And can I get to any of those? Or let me see all the other mini services. So some of the things that were exposed were things like home and business surveillance videos, tax returns, billing invoices, documents, OneDrive, Intuit, other online services, vehicle identification numbers of vehicles, so DMV type info, patient names, doctor visits, other details. So they list a specific site here, Dr. Chrono, I don't know, patient care cloud platform, it says. Travel itineraries, so Priceline, Booking.com, airline websites, and Facebook Messenger attachments and Facebook photos. Even if the photos are set to be private, if you have the URL, you can get to them.
So if you go to nachoanalytics.com now, they are no longer accepting new signups.
I saw that.
And there's a splash screen, I guess, as splashy as you can get on a web page, saying that we understand that an individual exploited our tool to seek out security flaws in less secure websites. Nacho Analytics was created to gather market-focused insights. I don't understand. I don't know how that sounds legal.
Right.
But
right. No,
it says right in there, FAQ, this is perfectly legal. In fact, with trade secrets, extensive calculations, and benchmarking mixed in, our system has earned a patent. Well, that explains it. You've got a patent, so clearly it's legal.
Yeah.
There is so much of the internet I know nothing about. And this is one of them.
It makes you realize or think how many people are profiting from from dirty behavior. Anyway, what else was I going to say about this? So there were a bunch of extensions that were doing this, but one of the popular ones that this guy that wound up tracking it all down was frustrated because he basically saw traffic that shouldn't have been happening and was trying to figure out how it was, and went and talked to a couple of users for a forum that he ran, and found out that they were both using the same extension called Hover Zoom, was one of them, a Chrome extension for enlarging images, it says. But there were a bunch of them that were. And so he actually installed the extension and basically kind of like what you're doing for your TV with your Pi-hole, he monitored traffic,
what it was doing,
what it was doing, and it didn't do anything for a long time. In fact, he said, after more than 3 weeks of lying dormant, the extension uploaded its first batch of visited URLs. And then within a couple of hours, the visited links, which referenced domains controlled by him, were published on Nacho Analytics. So soon after, each URL was visited by a third party that went on to download the page contents. So basically, the extension uploads the URLs. This third-party data provider that Nacho Analytics is referencing is probably the one that's actually slurping up the data and sharing it to multiple, sort of reselling it.
Right.
And then other people, perhaps with the most benign of intent, perhaps not, are visiting those URLs, downloading them, and then doing whatever they want with them. Mm-hmm. So anyway, there's a bunch of data in here, and then there's also there was a bunch of companies that were had employees that were impacted for sure, and there were a number of them here. So they they called out a couple of companies by name, and a couple of them actually responded with statements too, saying, thank you for alerting us, and we'll do our thing. Mm-hmm. So that was my first one. That was a.
If you're doing anything on the internet, someone else is seeing it. It's not private.
No,
despite the fact we just talked about encryption.
Nothing. No. I had that conversation. I've tried starting that conversation with my kids, and I know that you have as well. But yeah. I don't think they believe me yet. But I got to work on it. Okay, my second topic was kind of more fun. This is a article. Where is this? Trail of Bits. Trailofbits.com. So this is a article on container escape. And so they kind of walk through how to execute something outside of a container. And I thought this was pretty cool. So this was
like Docker, right?
I'm sorry. Yes. Like a Docker container. And so a container escape is, so with a container, you're supposed to be isolated to what's inside the container. Like you can't see processes out of it. You can't see files out of it. You can't see
kind of like a sandbox
devices out of it. It is a sandbox. And I mean the whole point is if you're I guess I wasn't really prepared to this, but we've talked about containers a bit in various aspects, but I would say the two lovely things about containers, the first of which is you get to sort of package up your application in a way that it can run in many places. So the Docker file you create specifies everything you need to run your app and how to launch it or your service or your process, whatever it is.
Yep.
So that packaging is super useful, and then it's running a container is much lighter weight than running a full VM, right? Because you're basically sharing the kernel. Whereas if you're running 10 VMs, you have 10 kernels running on top of a host kernel,
right?
And so with virtual machines, the density of services or applications you can run on one device is much lower than if you're running containers. But there's other kind of niceties that if you are able to factor your application into containers, etc., and plan for using them in an orchestrator like Kubernetes, you should be able to design it so that you have multiple containers. You don't really care where they run. The orchestrator can move them around and start and stop them. And anyway, lots of nice things about containers. But a container escape is if you can get out of your container and run something on the host OS, bad things. Generally, that might mean that you could get out and run something that would give you visibility into the other containers, would give you visibility into the host OS, and the ability to basically control it. So this article is pretty long and pretty good because they actually walk through a lot of assumptions and assertions. I learned quite a few things from this, which is why I'm kind of passing it along. Is in the first part, I guess another thing to know about containers is that most containers don't have root privilege and the ability to do things on the host, but you can have what's called a privileged container, and you can run a container with a privileged flag, which is not recommended generally, but for some security tools, for some logging tools, for some monitoring tools, privileged containers exist to help monitor other containers. I mean, that's basically one of the problems. Right. is if you have this nicely sandboxed environment and you kind of want to have something that is looking at the other sandboxes and seeing what's going on and helping to detect anomalies or enforce rules in some of those sandboxes. But you kind of want your software there to also be nicely architected and containerized and not have to depend on the host OS and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's kind of some of the reasons for a privileged container. But the escape that they're talking about here, it was first shown with a privileged container, but they're saying that it doesn't actually require privileged. The only requirements are you have to be running as root inside the container. The container has to be run with the sysadmin Linux capability. And the container, well, two more things, I guess. The container has to either not have an AppArmor profile or allow the mount system call. And AppArmor is a Linux kernel capability, kind of like, I guess I'll say kind of like whitelisting, that says you can have fine-grained control over what the process is allowed to do. You can say you can't make these system calls.
Right.
And so this container escape actually relies on the mount system call. And so obviously that if you have a profile, which by default it does, that doesn't allow that, then you're good to go. And then finally, the C group v1 virtual file system must be mounted read-write inside the container. So this this is one of the things that I feel like I learned reading this article. So that was kind of the cool thing. So this is basically where they're going to write a file that they want to get executed out on the host instead of inside the container. And so if the files, basically the container escape relies on a part of the file system being mapped in so that they have permission to write there, which is, kind of, it's a lot of stipulations, but not impossible and not non-existent.
It's not a contrived example,
right?
As some may be. This is probably more feasible than other types of things may be.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I guess the tricky thing of this, and I'll get to I'm not gonna, I can't really, let me explain these Unix commands in audio. It's easier to, if somebody's really interested, to come and look here. But the net of this is that they're using a kind of a tricky thing that says, first of all, with a C group, I don't know what the C stands for. I assume it's container group, but I don't remember what C group stands for. But this is a C group is basically a kernel facility that allows you to have a particular group of processes with a set of permissions. And there's a feature in this that you can trigger a notification when the last process in the C group dies. So I assume that the Docker engine is the thing that's normally doing this and is wanting to know when a process dies so it can basically go and clean up. But essentially, they are writing two things. They write a flag into the basically a configuration file for notify on release that basically says, hey, I want you to call a function when the last process dies inside the C group. And then they write a file, a command into the function or the file that's going to get executed as that release. And then they basically create a child C group of themselves because they want to be running. They create a child C group, set this release agent for that child C group, and then start a process and kill it inside that C group, which triggers the release agent to be called, which calls the function that they wrote out on the host instead of inside the container. And that's how they boom. Now you're outside the container.
Real-time follow-up. control group. C group is control groups.
Control group. Thank you. I accept corrections happily. Control group. So, what was I saying? I think that's the meat of it, though, is that it's kind of leveraging this feature for notify on release, and then the since they have that directory where those C groups are created, or that the C group scripts are created, they're able to sort of write the script inside their container, create the child group, basically create a process in that group and kill it, which triggers the execution of their script from outside on the container. So,
right,
or outside of the container itself. So, anyway, I thought this was cool because they kind of walk through each of the steps and each of the commands, and the only command they're executing is a PS,
right,
like a process list,
just to prove they can do it.
But yeah, so this is just a proof, but yeah, worked. So I thought that was cool. How about something fun for the night? What do you got for me?
So my something fun follows on from your something fun last week. You talked about the
Apollo 11.
50th anniversary of the Apollo 11. Well, I don't even know how I stumbled across this. I was completely unaware that India has actually planned and successfully launched a spacecraft to land on the moon in September. So a rocket lifted off from India, and will be orbiting the Earth and then fall into a lunar orbit and then land on the moon about September 7th. So, hey, that's kind of cool.
I don't remember reading about that either. I mean, I remember reading something a while back that it was happening, but India is also working on moon missions, but I didn't realize it was launching this week. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So let me see. So I was just checking really quick what the real-time updates are. So July 24th, which is the day we're recording this, the lunar module, I don't know what they call it. The name is, and I'll probably mispronounce the name, Chandrayaan 2 is the name of the module. On July 24th, started its first earthbound maneuver.
Fantastic.
I will be curious to see, and interested, not curious, well, I guess both, to see how that works out. And it'd be kind of cool to see, when was the last time something actually landed on the moon?
China landed on the far side of the moon in January of this year. So, yeah, there's a, space is open for business again.
It's been a while.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see it.
Very cool. Anyway, so that was my something fun.
That is truly something fun. That is fantastic.
And I look forward to seeing the news on September 7th.
Yeah. Okay, keep me posted. Maybe it'll be follow-up. Or maybe it'll be something fun.
You're fun.
My something fun is really light this week, but I have been enjoying, and I feel like you mentioned this on the podcast, that I've been enjoying the Civilization VI game, and I've got it on Steam, but I almost never play it on Steam. I'm almost always like on my iPad these days upstairs if I'm doing something. And but yesterday or today, the latest expansion, well, let me say, a new expansion came out for Civ VI. So I thought that I should say, hey, this is fantastic.
You're just trying to get me to spend more money.
I want you to spend your money. Sure, it's fine. It's good. And I'm actually I'm going to Disneyland tomorrow, and so we got a flight. So I'm downloading the extension or the expansion tonight, so that my kids and I can play it on the plane tomorrow. That's my plan. So that is a very fun game, and it's not cheap. The expansion's $30, but it's a what do they say, a AAA title or a quadruple A title or a 5A title? I don't know how many titles. It's a lot of A's. It's a good one. It's not a free to play, pay to win
right
kind of game.
Right. It's not a casino game for the iPad kind of thing or iPhone.
No. I wish there were more games like this.
Well, I am not going to Disneyland, but I am going on vacation as well, and I'm taking this. I don't know if I'll get the expansion pack. I probably won't, if I'm honest with myself yet. I'll wait to hear your review. And then, I'm going to sit down with my boy, and we'll probably end up playing some Civilization over the next few days on vacation here. So,
all right, enjoy. All right, we better.
All your fault, John.
Yep, you can blame me. Curse you, John. Curse you. All right, man. Call it a show.
Yep. We'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye.